Welcome to Reef Diary, day 40. So I got some more potassium in today, as well as some more ICP test kits. And I saw all the snails on the glass, but this was funny. One of my regular snails went into the jar. And here are some of the dead corals I pulled out of the tank because they are not going to come back to life anytime soon. So I might be super hopeful, but I am seeing some new colors appearing in this chalice. This thing has been kind of like a light pastel, and I'm seeing oranges and green and a little bit of yellow, and I'm like, all right. So I am thinking the potassium is making a difference. The acan looks normal. This guy right here, okay, the camera makes it look 10 times greener than it is, but there's hints of green on the left and along the top, and that is promising, to say the very least. I've been looking around the rest of the tank, and the Cephastria, it's all right. It's different. The maize looks fantastic. And I am so happy these two little dendros are open. I've had them for years, and they're completely open. Their polyps are swaying in the flow. It's so much nicer to see that happening. These acans are looking really nice. They're part of a group of acans I bought back at Aquashella 2.5 years ago. The Lobos, they're kind of doing this weird glowing thing. I'm not sure if it's a sensor or because Spock was swimming overhead and creating a shadow. But yeah, there is some glow. So the tank itself looks very empty to me. There's a lot of missing corals, that are long since gone. But there's still plenty of life in there, so I need to quit whining so much and be grateful for what I have. I am pleased to see things are improving a little tiny bit, just a crumb, but it is a crumb in the right direction, and that is pretty much what we always need, a little bit of hope. The end view is nice, and if you'll notice, the glass on the left is clean and the glass on the right is not. What a difference, huh? That's why it's so important to keep cleaning the glass. So, next step, I wanted to heat up some tubing so I could fit it over the end of some rigid tubing for the bottle of potassium. So I have this kettle that boils water rapidly, and I grabbed a shot glass, or whatever you want to call this thing, and I put in some nice hot water so that I could put the tubing in there to soften it for, like 30, 45 seconds, a minute. And then I could press it onto the rigid tubing. However, as you'll watch in the next, 30, 45 seconds of edits, I had no luck at all doing this because the rigid tubing and the diameter of this tubing were the exact same size. You know how sometimes you are just determined to make something work and you think, well, if I just try hard enough and if I keep at it, I'll eventually use my willpower to make this happen? Well, that was me today. So I tried a few different things. I tried lining things up against the walkboard. I tried heating up both ends. I tried using a pair of scissors to create a little split in the plastic. What else did I do? I tried everything I could think of, and nothing was working. So then I just went back to a different method that always works, where you use a slightly larger piece of tubing, and it goes over both ends of the other tubing to create the perfect bridge. And this way I have a nice piece of rigid tubing down inside the bottle to the bottom of the bottle that feeds to the dosing pump, and then some flexible tubing from the dosing pump that'll reach into the reef. And I'm just going to rig this up over my aquarium again because I want it to drip into the reef. I don't want it to go into the sump and possibly land somewhere else or not really get sucked into the return pump. My goal is to get this where it belongs with the corals. So let me tell you something else that is going on that was actually an area of concern, and so again I discussed it with my friend Dwayne, and I told him what I was thinking. So if I were to go ahead and start doing some large water changes on my reef to get the water exactly where it needs to be with the brand new batch of salt that I know I can trust, then what could happen is my nitrate would literally cut in half, or just cut down more and more and more with each water change. And I'm already pretty low, and I don't want to actually bottom it out, and I don't want to have to dose nitrate. So keeping that in mind, I do need to add potassium to the tank right now because the water is the water as it is now, unchanged. So if I put in more potassium, what will happen is the alkalinity will rise again and the calcium will rise a little bit as well. If I were to leave the calcium reactor running, this would actually be a conflict. It would make the alkalinity rise too high. So I foresee the need to keep the calcium reactor off for the next 5 days as I dose 200 milliliters of potassium per day. So besides gradually bringing up the potassium a little bit more day after day after day, I'm also going to put in a couple of 100-gallon water changes because I do want to change out more and more of the old salt water with some of the newer salt water that has better levels. As you can imagine, this took some time to figure out to come up with a good working game plan, but I believe this will be the best approach for the next week. And hopefully we'll just see more and more improvement in the aquarium while this goes on. And then in about another week or so, the tank will be just about ready to plant some new corals. The one downside to putting my bottle of potassium up on the acrylic cross brace and putting the dosing pump there is that the bottle is so tall that I cannot move the light rack. And if for some reason I was in the front of the tank and I decided to push the light rack out of my way from the walkboard side, I would knock my bottle to the ground and waste all the fluid. So I am aware that this is here, but if you were doing something similar because you saw me do this, keep that in mind. You don't want to have something accidentally fall. I am well aware of what's going on around my tank, and I'm the only one that works in my tank, and it's going to take a lot for me to forget this specific thing I'm doing at this time. You know what you need to do now. You need to click like, you need to subscribe, you need to do all the things. So, okay, as we wrap this up, I hope you enjoyed Reef Diary number 40. I can't believe we've done 40 in a row. I'm actually very pleased that we've accomplished this. It seems like a nice benchmark, and we'll just keep doing this each day until we're done.